Good morning or afternoon. This is Mark here, and today I'm going to take you through our new Quality Inspector application for Business Central. So Quality Inspector really it's not really the next version of our existing quality inspection product. So we do have an existing quality inspection product, part of Shop Floor Insight. So if you have Shop Floor Insight, you've got the quality module with that. Quality Inspector is similar to that. We've taken all the good things out of the Shop Floor version, and we've extended that very significantly. So it is definitely a next level up from the shop floor quality inspection, which was primarily around sort of intermediate production tests and things like that. We can do a whole lot more now in the new quality inspector. So first of all, very configurable. We're not forcing you into, hey, this is how you do quality. You've got a quality process, a quality program. You want to use that best practice process that you've defined. Well, you can configure the quality inspector to adapt to your process. We're not saying this is how you do quality, so it's very configurable. And you can create your own inspection forms. And when I say form, that's really the data entry within Business Central. You can also, of course, create printed forms like reports and things like that. And we provide a certificate of analysis, an NCR report, and those sorts of things within the system. But you can obviously create your own reports. But this forms I'm talking about is where we go in and we define the type of information we're going to capture. You can also do grading now. So we see that a lot where people want to receive product and they want to give it an A, B, or C grade. Well, you can do that automated grading based on the test results that you put into the system. These two here, the integration. So built-in workflow integration. So you can extend that within Business Central. So it has built-in actions and triggers within the built-in Business Central workflow. And if you want to get really fancy, you can use the Power Automate integration. So it's got API for Power Automate that makes it very easy to automate almost anything you do within the system. And the Teams integration, you think, well, of course, Business Central has Teams integration. Well, this takes it a little further in that it allows us to go in and show the details like you would when you share a contact or something like that. So instead of just sharing a link within Teams, we're sharing more rich information. And as you know, that helps with licensing, right? Because somebody running Teams doesn't need a Business Central license to see some of the information that we might want to share through quality inspection. Like if a test fails, we can share that failed test with somebody else that maybe doesn't even have a Business Central license that can then go and do something about that. All right, we also have interfaces for the Business Central app. So if you're running it on a phone or a tablet, like a QC person running around with a tablet or a phone to do those inspections, we have interfaces specifically for the phone and the tablet to allow them to do that. And of course, the desktop, the standard Business Central interface is probably where most people will do their work, but we do have the ability to work with whatever form factor you want. The initial version, so we have, I'll talk about this more in the demo, but there are automated tests that can be created. So in the shop floor version, what it could do is automatically create a test for production orders. Well, we can still do that. We can also automatically create tests for purchase orders. But you can get fancy, of course, automate anything you like because you've got the power to automate that. Hey, I should be a Microsoft salesperson. Anyway, and this bottom one here is important as well. I mentioned production and purchasing, but you can create a test for anything in Business Central. That could be an employee, a fixed asset, an assembly order, a purchase order, an item. It doesn't really matter what it is. You can create tests for any record within Business Central. Okay, so that means you can extend it to your own custom tables, or if you have some specific process where you want to do tests on bin contents or whatever you want to do, you can set it up to do that. All right, now let's jump in and actually see what this thing looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm in here in Business Central. I'm going to do something a little different for this demo. I'm actually going to go into the setup to start with, just to show you a little bit about what's possible, because in the time we have today, I won't be able to get through all the features through the demo, so I'll just kind of go into setup and talk about some of those. So first of all, there's a bunch of basic settings up at the top here. This visibility, that's whether we want to extend the purchase order page and the output journal page and production order page and things like that with quality inspector specific buttons. So if you don't have that on, then the quality inspector is hidden, on a purchase order as an example, and I'd have to do all my tests from the quality module. The grades here, this again allows us to enable or disable grades, and I'll maybe show you that in a bit. But what that means is if I want to define grades for a specific test, like grade A, B, C, based on quality or temperature or whatever I want to measure, I can record that on a per test basis. If I leave it like this, they only show promoted. What that means is I'm only going to show the things that we care about. So this is the simple, this is the easy button, basically for most tests where you just have a pass-fail type of situation. And a few other things here. Again, that picture upload, if I take photos, we can use Doc Extender to attach like we would in any normal document, but I can store it in a whole bunch of different places. So I can just put the picture right on the test card itself, or I can attach it, or I can upload it to OneDrive with the base Business Central, or I can use the Doc Extender capability to shove it into SharePoint or whatever I want to do. All right, and the last one I'll mention here is this workflow integration. If you turn that on again, you've got access to the Business Central workflow capabilities. And before we get into the actual stuff, I'll open these two up. The receiving and production initially are the two ones that have the built-in automation. So it's got a bunch of options for how we actually automate the creation of quality inspection tests. So in this case, I'm saying, hey, we're going to automatically create the test when the purchase order is posted. Or I could say I never want to create a test on purchasing, or when the warehouse receipt, and all those sorts of things. So I've got all of those options. And I can even go here and say, you know what, I'm not even allowed to post anything unless I actually have a test completed for that purchase order. So if you want to do all your testing before you actually receive the PO, you actually have that capability to do that there, right? And we've got a bunch of same things with production. The nice thing on the production here is we can also set it up to require test after a specific number of units are produced, or after a specific period of time has elapsed on that production order. So there's a whole bunch of good stuff we can do there. So all sorts of things we can do for that. And this inventory portion, that's for dispositions, where if you want to set up a workflow that moves product out of your receiving bin into a return to vendor or a QC bin or something like that, we can do that as well through the workflows or Power Automate as well. All right, so anyway, that's a little bit on the setup. A couple other things when you go into setup. I will mention grades here again because it's kind of a nice feature. So these are the grade definitions that I have, and I've got it set up to only show sort of the pass-fail type stuff. So I only care about in progress, pass-fail, but I could set up tests again that could have, the different grades defined. And the nice thing about these grades as well, if we look down here, if I've classed a product through just, entering, maybe it's a moisture content just for fun, and moisture content is low, so that makes it a grade B product instead of my ideal grade A product, but I get some grade B product in. Well, I can sell it, I can purchase it, I can do all that, but I can't use it in my own production. So I won't be, for any grade B products, I won't be able to use that in my production activities. I block that, right? So all of these different things can be set at the grade level. And then grade C product, I'm allowed to sell it, but I wouldn't be allowed to actually receive that grade C product. I'd have to actually send that back, right? So if I test something that I already have in stock, I'd be allowed to sell it as grade C, but I'm not allowed to buy a grade C product or use it in production or anything like that. Okay, so you can set up all of these rules based on the grades. And same thing here, if I'm just using the simple where I've got these three, in progress, fail, or pass, like if it's in progress, I'm not going to allow you to sell that lot number unless I've completed that test. So if it's in progress, I'm not allowed to sell it. After that, I can do all the other stuff, but I can't sell it if it's in progress. If it's failed, I can do a bunch of stuff, but a bunch of stuff I'm not allowed to do when it fails. And if it passes, I've got everything available to me. All right, so that's basically that's the grade stuff. And then we'll get into one last little thing here, the source configuration. You should never actually have to look at this source configuration unless you're doing something custom, like unless you want to add a test to a fixed asset or something else that's not there by default. Because this is where we go in and we can set up basically any table that you want to do a test against, you can set it up here. This all gets set up by default. When you run the setup wizard, all the key stuff gets set up here for you automatically, so you don't really have to touch it. But again, if you want to come in, here's an example. This is a corrective action report that we can trigger based on a failed test. So we can say, hey, if there's a failed test, I'm going to trigger a corrective action, and this would be the setup for it. So again, you don't really have to worry about this too much, but this is, again, where we can come in and set up tests against any table we want to set up in the system. All right. And incidentally, on all of these things, there is tours and help and all that. You can come in and read a bit about what's going on each individual page if you've got the tour stuff turned on. All right, so that's basically the setup. Actually, I lied. I'm going to show you one more thing just for fun, and that's the quality inspectors and the permissions. So it's kind of like warehouse employees, where you come in and you set up specific people that can execute quality tests, and then what they can do within those tests as well. So this is me. I'm allowed to do pretty much anything I want other than change tests assigned to others. And you know what? I'm going to give myself that access as well. So when you set up the roles, the permission sets, you can set up people that are allowed to edit the setup and not. For me, I can edit everything, but here I can do pretty much everything. I can create retests, I can finish the tests, I can do all that kind of stuff. And everybody other than these two people are not allowed to do anything else. Okay? So again, you've got a lot of control over how all of this stuff works. You can set up your QC team and what each member of that team is allowed to do. All right, so that's basically it. That's all I'm going to talk about for setup. And just for fun, because I did actually change something in setup there. I said, you know what, we're not allowed to actually receive a purchase order unless we have a test for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to come in, and here I've got this item that I'm supposed to receive. And I'm going to come in here and say I want to receive another one of these things, and I'm going to just go and post, and we'll just post receive an invoice. And what it's going to do is it's going to tell me, first of all, that because I was invoicing, I don't have the vendor invoice number in there. So let's fix that real quick. And now we'll post. And when it comes in, it's going to come in and say, hey, you can't do this test, right? It says, you need a finished test for that particular item and that document number, and there are none. And it gives you the whole detail of what you actually need to do to allow you to post that. So this is an example on purchasing, which, you probably don't want to test things before they're received. You likely receive them into stock, then do the QC and return to vendor. But if you wanted to test everything before you receive it, you could. But that feature is just as handy on outbound sales type stuff, right? Where I don't want to do the shipment until a quality inspection has been done on that. Like I've got an outbound inspection, until that inspection is complete, maybe I don't want to post that sales order, don't want to allow the posting of the shipment. So in a case like this, I've got a few options, right? I could have a trigger that's set up so that when I release this PO, it actually creates a test for me automatically, or I could just come in here and say, hey, for that line that I'm on, I'm just going to create that test. I'm going to do an ad hoc test. And, I haven't done all my setup. I'll go finish my setup and then I'll show you how we can do that. But I could just create that test right from the purchase order here and generate it. And the reason I didn't do that, I'll just do that again so we can see that error message. The reason I didn't do that, it says, hey, I can't find a matching test for that item number. I don't know what kind of test to create for this particular purchase order. So let's actually go see how we would set that up. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go into the templates. So the way this works is you come in and you define templates for your tests. And a template really is your quality inspection entry form. That's what we're really defining here. And I do have one for receiving here. So let's actually open this up and see what it is. And by the way, when I select that, we can see, historical data for, existing tests that are out there and all sorts of things. So to show me any of my outliers and stuff like that. And I can come in and I can open up the analysis form that gives me the ability to see, a matrix and all those sorts of things within this. So there's a bunch of analysis tools you have as well. But anyway, right here, it just gives me a quick view of recent tests and what those results are. That's basically it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this receive here, and we're going to go in and have a look at what I'm trying to do. So down here, this is my entry form effectively. These are the fields that I've got that I need to record when I'm doing that inspection. And these are the allowable values. In other words, I wouldn't be allowed to enter a 9 in this field. But this is the value that indicates whether it's a pass or not. So I can enter any value between 10 and 200, but only 15 to 30 is a pass. And this is the standard, Business Central, filter terminology. So here, if instead of typing the entire undamaged, I could type U star. Anything that matches that is going to result in a pass. So in this description here, you get to set. So I'll just say it needs to be undamaged to pass. Otherwise, we're not going to accept it. And these fields here, you define, right? So you can come in here and define whatever fields you like. So let's say I want to, this is not enough. I want to add one more thing into this. I want to, capture some additional information. Maybe I want to capture the color on this because it's supposed to be a blue chair. Maybe I want to see what color they actually shipped us or something like that. So what I can do is I can just hit add a field. And what that does is it allows me to either choose an existing field. So I can come in here and I can say, oh, there's color. I could just choose an existing field and I could use that color field with these options here. Or I could actually come in and say, you know what, I want a brand new color field that's specific to chairs, right? So I've got whatever, this is just a generic color thing. I want a field specific to receiving chairs or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just create a brand new field. And I'm going to say it's the chair color, okay? And when I do that, it comes up with a default name for me and then lets me select the type of field I'm going to use. And I'm going to choose it from a list. So these are all the different things that you can put in. Basically a number, that'd be your range, right? Any numeric value. Choice from a list I can read from an existing Business Central table, or it could just be a list I type in, just random text, dates, and then some advanced configuration for these options here. I'm going to do this choice from a list, and we're going to go through, and I'm going to say it's going to be a simple list of values. If I do an existing table, then I can look up data from a Business Central table. So I'm just going to do blue and, well, just for fun, I'm going to say not blue, because all we care about is blue. So I could have made this, a checkbox field, like a yes, no field instead of blue, not blue. I could have said my field could have been, is it blue? And then it could have been a yes, no. But in this case, I've got a couple of options here, a couple of things, and that's it. I add that field in and I've got it here. Oh, and I spelled chair color wrong. I'll leave it like that just for fun. Anyway, chair color was spelled wrong. So now what I do is I come in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to set the pass conditions and all that stuff, right? Oops, sorry, close that. I'm going to come in and I can set the pass fail conditions on a test by test basis, right? So I can come in here and say what indicates a pass and what indicates a fail, just like I've done with these others. I'm going to leave it like that for now. So basically, any value that comes in is going to be fine. And I really should rename that, but I won't bother for now. All right, so that's my test definition. This is my entry form. The next thing I want to do is come in here and say, how do we generate, how do we actually create this test? And you'll notice this one I've already done, and I've said it's specific to this item. And that's why when I was in that PO and said I couldn't create a test, well, this receiving test here is not for a chair, it's for a very different item number. So the easiest thing I can do is come in here and remove that. But what you would use this for is you could come in here and say, you know what, I want to do this on a purchase line so again, these are all the things that we set up previously in the source configuration. I can say, hey, when the vendor is a specific vendor or any criteria that comes off that purchase line, I can come in here and I can say, when that happens, that's when I want to create the test. Okay. So item category codes, vendors, whatever, all that kind of stuff, I can come in and say, I only want to use this test when it's a specific vendor or when it's a specific item category, or in this case, when it's a specific item. So in this case, this first filter is kind of useless because this bottom one allows me to use it on any purchase line whatsoever. So instead of doing that, what I'll do, I'm just going to remove this And I'm going to come in here and just get rid of that filter completely and say now any product I receive is going to use this test to enter my quality information. Okay, so that's kind of what we set up. So I came in, I set up the test. I've got my definitions and everything here, and now all I'm going to do is go in and create the test. So I can create a test from here, so I can come in and enter the record details. Let's just go back to that purchase order for fun. So the other way to do it, again, I went into that purchase order earlier, and I couldn't, post the receipt because I didn't have a test. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and right from the PO, I'm going to create that test. So now if I come in and say create test, what we're going to get is it's going to use that definition and those generation rules that I defined, and it's going to create my test for me. And it brings in all the detail I need, right? So this again is defined in the source configuration, but that's all set up by the setup wizard. So we know which, it's a purchase order, we know the line number, we know all that kind of stuff. If this had lot or serial number information required, we can also bring that in, or you can manually select which lot number and serial number you're testing at this point. Okay, so that's basically it. I created it, and now I can simply come in here and enter my values. Again, if I enter something like this, it's going to fail because I'm not allowed to enter anything out of that 10 to 200 range. But let's say I do enter, a 10 here. What it's going to do is it's going to flag that as a failure, right? So this is actually now in the test fail mode. It's still in progress, but we've failed one of the tests. All the other tests are in progress. So if I come in here and finish this up, let's say everything else just passes, and we'll go 11, and this guy is going to be, undamaged. Oh, by the way, what I did there without using the mouse, in Business Central, the Alt down arrow here, anytime you need to select a value, will load up that screen. So you can enter the data pretty quickly if you want, just with the Alt down arrow key and enter. So that's basically it. There's my test, and we're good to go. And it's going to be a failure because we've got this guy that has failed. And because I didn't specify my pass fail information, we've got an unknown thing here. But typically this will be a pass or a fail. And then what I would do is I'd say finish, and that would flag this test as finished in a failure mode if all of these guys failed. Okay. So that's basically how it works. Now, if I do finish this and it is in a failure mode, I can create a retest on that. So maybe it failed and it just needs repackaging because the box was packaged. I could do a retest and then pass this. And then again, based on those rules, I could now be allowed to receive it or ship it or whatever I like at that point. Okay. So if I hit finish here, we're going to finish this test, and now it's flagged as finished. And this will actually allow me to now receive this item if I want, because we've got a passed test for that item. Okay. So that was a lot of information. But again, basically what it allows you to do is come in and create whatever test template you want. So here's a corrective action report. So if we open this guy up, what this will allow us to do based on the source configuration, we can come in here and say, you know what, we're going to go in and we're going to automatically create a corrective action report test based on the failure of another test. And when we do that, and that could be any test, it could be a receiving test, production test, fixed asset test, whatever you want. And then we're going to ask for all of this information. And then we're going to be able to go in and generate a report, a corrective action report or test report or whatever you want based on this information. So if we just come in here, rather than create one from scratch, see if we have some. So I do have some already. I'll open up one of these guys. And here's an example where I can come in and I can record all of the details in here about what happened, everything else. And then when I'm done, I can go into the reports and print my inspection report or whatever I need, or NCR report, that kind of stuff on this corrective action. So it just illustrates you can use this for more than just simple quality inspections. You could read this or use this as a inspection checklist, like somebody comes into the machining center in the morning and they do the quick inspection before they fire it up. You can have them go through and just mark everything that was good on that, and then flag it as finished so that you've got a record from a health and safety perspective that they actually went through and did that inspection. It doesn't have to be quality. It could be anything you like. It could be, an inspection for preventative maintenance or something like that. You could use it as part of your preventative maintenance program on your fixed assets to do inspections. So there's all sorts of things you can do with that, based on being able to create these entry forms and enter whatever you like. Now, let's say I do have this corrective action form, just for fun. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go out and, well, actually, you know what? I mentioned, we can create this test if something else fails. So let's talk a little bit about how we might do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into the Business Central workflows, and because I have in the settings the workflow integration turned on, when I open this up, we're going to be able to come in here and create a new workflow. So I'm just going to create a new workflow here, and I'm going to say, I'm going to call it, a QC fail or something like that, or it could be CAR type thing, and create, oops, spelling everything wrong, corrective action, and you can create your own category for QC stuff and everything else. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, when something happens, we're going to do something else. It's a workflow. That's what it does. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, and you'll notice in here, we've got somewhere, must be blind, there we go, up above me. We've got all of these things for the quality inspection module. So I can say, hey, you know what, when a quality inspection test is finished, right? So that's my event. And then I'm going to say, when the grade code, come on, grade code, oh, I spelled it wrong again, geez, grade E code. So when the grade code is fail, right? And maybe I want to do it failed, yeah, fail. When the grade code is failed, and maybe I want to do it only when I'm doing, a receiving test, right? So when a receiving test fails, right? So my template is receiving, and when it's failed, I'm going to do something else. And then what I can do is I can come in here and I can say, you know what? I'm going to create a new quality inspection test. And then I'm going to come in here and I can basically, through the source configuration, automatically choose the corrective action test, right? So what I do is in my source configuration, that'll be set up so that when I create a new quality inspection test based on this failed test, it's going to find the corrective action report and create that automatically. I don't have to do any other setup in the workflow here at all. But I might also want to say, you know what, I'm going to create that CR, but because this was receiving, I'm also going to come in here and block whatever lot number was in that test as well. And heck, let's get fancy. Actually, before I block the lot number, I'm going to move the inventory that was listed in that test. And here I can come in and I can say move the entire lot or serial number, and then I can set all the details of where I want to move it in the system, right? So I can come in and set where I'm moving it from, where I'm moving it to, and I can post it immediately or just create the journal lines. So I'm going to move my inventory, and then I'm going to go ahead and block that lot number that was in the test. And by the way, when we're doing this blocking, you do need the lot information turned on, because that's where lots are blocked, on the lot information card and serial information. So when you're using that lot blocking capability, make sure you have the lot information must exist turned on for your item tracking, and that way we can actually block that specific lot number. Okay, so anyway, there's my workflow. So a few little clicks, and now I can say if my receiving test fails, I'm going to do a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to create a corrective action report or whatever I want to do, whatever is set up in my system to create a new test. I'm going to move the inventory into a QC bin or a QC location, and I'm also going to go ahead and block the lot number that I just received. Okay, simple as that. We can set up those workflows very quickly and easily. And of course, because it's a standard Business Central, you could extend this with AL. But now, if you want to do something more than that, we've also got the ability to use Power Automate with this. So I'm just going to jump over here into Power Automate, and I've got a couple of things here. Well, actually, you know what? Let me start here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the lot information since I just talked about it. And, you know, we've got a few lots listed here. Actually, we've got one lot listed here. And if I open up that lot information card, here's where we can record the grade and we can look up existing tests for this lot number and serial number and everything else. But here's my lot information. And if you look at this, by default, we don't have, like on the purchase order, I could actually create a test right from the PO or the production order routing line. I could create a test. On this one, I don't have that ability, but I might want to come in and say for this specific lot number, this lot information, I want to create a test for that. So what do? We come in here and you'll notice under the automate, I've got this create test on lot info. And the way that got there was from Power Automate. So let's go into where I just was in the manage flows here. And I'm just going to go back here. And I've got this create test on lot info. And if we look at what that does, what this will do, and I'm not going to get into the details of how you set it up. There are videos online that walk through this in more detail. All I'm doing is just using the standard Power Automate stuff, filling in my environment, and this is the lot information page that we're on, so it knows what the source is. And then all I'm saying is, you know, still the same environment, the company, everything else. You'll notice when we do this drop down, it's got the quality inspection in there. We want to select that. And then it's got this action, quality create test on record. And all I have to do is tell it, hey, use this record, which comes in automatically from Power Automate. It's just in here. And on this table, and guess what? As soon as I click that, it's going to create a new quality test for me on that lot number based on the configuration that I have in the source config. So if I come in here and hit this, what it's going to do is it's actually going to fire up Power Automate. It's going to do its thing in a sec here, and it's going to create that test for me automatically. Okay, simple as that. So it's busy running. Now, the only downside of using Power Automate over the workflow will run immediately, right? So as soon as something happens, it pops up. It can pop up the new test, everything else, and the Power Automate though runs in the background. So at some point within the next few seconds, most likely, it will go in and create that quality inspection test for me. And I would be able to then come into my quality inspection tests and actually see the test that got created. Right there it is. And we can open up that test and we're done. So this allows us, with our Power Automate and that API integration, to come in and generate tests automatically for any record. So I mentioned in the setup, we have sort of some default behavior for purchasing and production, but that's not really that limiting, because with Power Automate or the API, we can automate tests on any record you like, or more importantly, you can automate tests on any record you like. And here again, I would just come in, enter my data, and whatever those values are, and I've got it in the pass mode. I can finish that, and now we've got this finished test. We've got all the records of what happened. I can come in and print my certificate of analysis on that particular lot number, and you can do this based on the retests and everything else. So it gives me all my detail, and of course you can customize these reports as much as you like. And by the way, I've mentioned retests a few times here. If this was a failure, or even if it's a pass, I can come in here and create a retest for that specific lot number and previous test. And now I've got sort of a history. I've got my original test, I've got the retest. So if I'm performing multiple tests on a specific lot number or serial number or whatever it happens to be, I can do that. And I've got a list of all those retests and everything else. And then I can enter the retest data. So this is typically used if you have a failure and I do some rework. I can then go and retest and ensure the rework fixed the issue that I was dealing with. Okay. And you notice it brings in the lot number automatically, and all that control information comes in automatically from the source configuration and everything else. Okay. All right. Now, the other thing, actually, while I'm on here, let's say this test was a failure, right? Let's say this was a failure, or maybe it passed, and I want to let somebody know that, hey, this thing passed, and you're okay now to go and do whatever you need to with that specific lot number. So what I'm going to do, there's somebody working, in the warehouse or in the shop or something, they don't have a Business Central license, but hey, they have a Teams license, and maybe they're running a handheld device running Warehouse Insight or whatever, because they're warehouse personnel and they've got a handheld device in their hand. Well, those handheld devices can run Teams and whatever you like. They don't have a Business Central license, they don't need it, but they do have Teams. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this test to Teams with a little bit of a note, and it pops up. And I mean, you've seen this team sharing before, but just to show you what it does with Quality Inspector, we will see it here in a sec. So Teams wants to open up. All right, so here it is. Now we give it a sec again. This is we're just waiting for my Teams to open, because it gives us this little card down here. So it does give you the link into Business Central and the details into Business Central. But if I was somebody that didn't have access to Business Central, I've got all this information. I could make a quick note, hey, this thing passed, go to town or whatever. And the document is blank because this came off a lot of information, but this could be the purchase order number or whatever that document that it came in on. So this is the type of information you can share with Teams. And you're wondering, well, can I customize this? Well, maybe you aren't wondering it, but I will tell you, you can customize it. So all of this detail that's shown here is actually configured from within the Quality Inspector setup. So if I go back into setup, I'll just show you where that is. And that's also important because it leads into some other stuff. So if we go down here, personal device interface. So you'll notice here, it's got this thing called a brick. Well, the brick is what you see on the personal device interface and in Teams. So here I can actually configure what shows up in Teams and what shows up if I'm running this on a phone or a tablet or a handheld device. So I can come in here and list all the things that you want to show, and that's what shows up in Teams. So it's, again, very configurable solution. All right, now speaking of that personal device, let's actually have a look at what this can look like on a handheld device, because, QC people, a lot of the times they're out there and they need to be mobile. They're running around doing inspections on received product or in production or whatever, and they may need a mobile device. So what I'm going to do is I've got two here. I've got this guy here, which is a handheld device, and this guy here, which is a phone. It's in fact my phone, so let's hope nobody texts me while I'm doing this. So what those look like, just for fun, are these. All right, so there's my handheld device running Business Central, and again, it could be running Teams instead of Business Central or whatever. And this one here is using sort of the full role center. So this is just a standard role center for Quality Inspector. So I can come in here, and if I want to see my tests, I can hit that, and it's going to show me my tests. And this isn't configured properly in there for the default view, but I've got a list. And again, you'd have to go in and set up the brick properly for this view. The other interface is the one that's designed specifically for mobile devices. So this is the phone optimized interface. It's just a different role center. And on here, I can swipe through all of the different things, or just come to the main thing where it's very simple. I want to look at all my open tests, and there is all the information that is defined based on that brick definition that that we set up in the Quality Inspector setup. Now, I want to open this up. I can see it here. Here's all my details, and I can come in then and set my information, right? Whatever that is, that's going to fail. That's not going to let me do that probably. Oh, maybe it is. I thought my limits were like 1 to 100, but I guess not. But this is just the same as Business Central. Anything that comes in that is the business logic that you can find in Business Central just runs in this. Basically it, right? I can come in, select a different lot number if I need to, all of that kind of stuff, enter all that information. If I need to come in, create a retest, all those sorts of things I can. And the other important one is the ability there to come in and take a photo as well, right? So that's pretty typical on a handheld device. I'm out there and I want to come in and take a photo of that product that I'm testing, everything else. I can take that photo, and I can't even remember what my settings were. I think I had it set to just stay on the card, but there's the photo. So if I go into that test in Business Central, I've got that photo, And if I've got it set up to upload to SharePoint or to add it as an attachment, whatever, I've got that in there automatically. Okay, so that's how we can run it on a handheld device. Okay. So if I go in and look at that picture, well, you saw it. I probably don't need to show you that, but let's go into this guy here. I can't even remember what test I was on. Probably the very top one here. That guy there. All right. So if I open that up, you know, it'll have the photo and any attachments. If I had it set up to do attachments, it's got that attachment as well. So if I want to take 10 photos, I'll have all those 10 photos listed here as well. Okay. So anyway, that is a bit on the Quality Inspector interface on the handhelds and within Business Central. Now it looks like we have like 200 questions listed here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back in here, talk about a couple other little things, and then I'll get to some of the questions that you have. Now, what you see is sort of the version 1 of Quality Inspector, and I think it's pretty darn good the way it is. You can use it across any number of industries, right? Foods, you know, metal fabrication, you know, distribution, like consumer packaged goods, whatever you want for receiving, production, maintenance, people, whatever you want to do an inspection or a test against. We actually have people using it for field service, right? Property inspections when they get out in the field. So you can use it for a ton of stuff. So it's really good for a version 1. Like it's in fact excellent for a version 1. But coming up this year, we'll have the shop floor insight version will be replaced with this. That's one of the priorities. And we're also going to have some additional built-in test automations. So where it automatically creates a test when I receive a PO or create a production order, those sorts of things. We'll have additional ones for things like assembly orders or, you know, moving into a QC bin and things like that. So those test automations where it automatically creates a test for you, so you don't have to do a Power Automate or anything, will be there. And then additional disposition options. So you saw some of that when I did the workflow, right? Where it can automatically move inventory from one bin to another, block a lot, those sorts of things. We'll have additional disposition options where, you know, if a test passes, it can do, for example, create a put away to put that stock away now that it's passed. Or if it fails, we can add that to a, you know, purchase return order or something like that. So there'll be options similar to that available this year for some of those, you know, sort of more common use cases. Next year, it'll have the integration with Warehouse Insight. So if I'm on a handheld using Warehouse Insight, doing receiving or production or anything else in Warehouse Insight, they'll also be able to execute quality inspection test on the handheld without having to run the Business Central app. And the big advantage of that is licensing, because now we don't need a user-specific Business Central license if I'm already running Warehouse Insight on a device. So it saves you some licensing there, and it keeps it all within one application, so very consistent user interface. I did mention graphical scheduler will be coming as well, so we'll be able to assign and schedule tests using the graphical scheduler. And of course, some additional reporting options and scorecards, like one thing we're asked about are things like vendor scorecards, right? How are your vendors doing quality-wise? So we'll have that type of capability next year as well. And just in general, a lot of feature enhancements. So Quality Inspector is getting a lot of love. It is getting a lot of development from our side, and we'll see it improve pretty significantly over time, even though it's pretty awesome as it is today. All right, quick note on licensing. So it is licensed per company. We like to keep our licensing very simple, mostly because I'm lazy, but it's licensed per company, so it's one cost per company. There's also a fixed price implementation available if you need our help getting it set up. We'll do that for you. And when it says, by the way, when it says no user-based license is required, you of course need a Business Central license for the user to log into Business Central to use it, but you don't need any user licenses from us to run it. And yeah, check with your partner if you have questions. It's on our latest price list. They'll be able to give you pricing on any of that. Okay. If you go to qcfordynamics.com, it's got a ton of videos there. I think we're up to maybe a dozen videos that go into a lot more detail about some of the concepts I covered today, right? Like how to use Power Automate, how to use the workflows, how to block lot number, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of detail on the website, a lot of how-to videos on there. So check that out if you have questions, or you can contact us for more information. With that, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. Hopefully that was useful for you. And again, feel free to contact us if you have any questions on that. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content.